There's a lot of elements of Carol and Captain Marvel that I admire that made me interested in wanting to take it on. But I think one aspect that really intrigued me was the fact that she's flawed, the fact that she makes mistakes in this movie, that she is very powerful and takes really big risks. She's confident and bold in that way, but that doesn't always mean that it plays out the way that she hopes it would. But you watch her get back up again and try again. And I think that's what life is all about, is taking the big risk and then atoning for the mistakes along the way. Because this is an exploration and one avenue of what female strength can look like, it was important to me that I put myself in that position myself, to not just say, oh, I just put on a magical costume and suddenly I'm super strong. Is that I put my body and my mind to the test and was able to do something that was way outside of my comfort zone and way beyond what I thought was possible. I mean, my goal of training for 9 months was just to see how far I could go. I would have never thought that I could deadlift 225 pounds by the end, or hip thrust 400 pounds, or be able to do pull-ups and push-ups, weighted push-ups. I mean, the things that I'm able to do with my body now are incredible, and I love that I can sit here and say that it's possible and that women can do incredible things, girls can do incredible things, and we can go toe-to-toe with the boys. We meet Carol, and she knows herself as Veers. She's living on the planet Hala as part of an elite group of noble warriors called the Star Force. And that's her identity. Her identity is this planet and protecting it and the folks that are closest to her. And then something happens, this sort of freak accident happened, which allows her to unlock certain memories that are happening in her brain that at first she thinks are maybe implanted because they seem so far removed from the world that she knew and the people that she loves. And the film is exactly that, of her trying to uncover more memories and figure out where it is that she came from. And I think it's a really unique and special part of this film that you're not following a woman who's trying to get to somewhere. She's trying to get to herself. The Star Force are an elite squad. Each of them has their own sort of unique gift that they bring to it, and they form this cohesive unit. One of the things that I love about them is how diverse the cast is within Star Force. And they all kind of fit in together to complete something that's really powerful. I got the opportunity to have a front row seat to Sam Jackson creating the origin of a character that we have all loved and watched for a decade. Getting to see him backtrack, a man who is just, you know, a masterclass in itself. It was such a treat, and I felt so excited because it's also, with movies like this, they're so secretive, so it's very private. So the things that I got to witness for a long time, nobody else was going to be able to see, and I held that dearly.
To me, it's amazing to be part of this Marvel family now. To be one of these Marvel characters, you know, it's awesome to be working with Anne and Ryan as directors of the film. And it's incredible for me to be working with all these actors, you know, that I used to see on TV, you know, like Oscar winners, Oscar nominees. And it's amazing. It's a great experience for me. You know, his relationship with Carol, I really like that part, you know, that he's like really, he's very like close. He looks up to her, you know, maybe like as a big sister or something. And I really like this closeness they have in the film. And when I was reading about this character, and I went online reading about this character, and I saw how close he was to Carol, you know, I was like, okay, this is really good, you know, I like it. Star Force is this group of warriors, you know, the very like skillful warriors that are sent to missions like to protect, to solve any mission, to protect. She's representing women. She's representing, I think she's representing in this movie how powerful women can be, you know, and this is like a great example to have in this movie. She's gonna be one of the strongest characters in Marvel, and that's gonna be really like inspiring for women, you know, like to okay, we have, you know, representation here in this character too.
When we started digging in and reading the comics, we read a lot. Read a lot of comics. We spent a lot of time in a dark room reading by ourselves and learning about this Carol Danvers, who has a very varied and unusual history. But we sparked to the Kelly Sue DeConnick iteration of the character. That was when she took on the mantle of Captain Marvel, and I think a lot of fans, a lot of Captain Marvel fans, really sparked to that character and her voice. And it was also very much what Kevin and Jonathan Schwartz were talking about in terms of the character that they were excited to dig into.
We were aware that Marvel had been making some bold hiring decisions before us. So we knew that Taika was doing the Thor movie and Ryan Coogler was going to do Black Panther. And so these are filmmakers that we consider our peers, and they come from indie filmmaking, very character-based storytelling. And so when we heard that they were hiring guys like that, our interest was really stirred, and we were like, you know what, this is cool. I mean, these guys they're not just after like the big spectacle, the big explosion. Yeah, that stuff is in the movie, but they're really after something character. They're after something really more complicated, and we hoped that they would embrace that when we came on board.
The narrative of this movie is very much about somebody who goes on a journey of discovery, self-discovery. She learned that she's not who she thought she was. She learns that, you know, the war that she was fighting is not what she thought. She learns about all the different people around her, and that the world is just a much more complicated place than she had originally thought. And the characters who we have in the movie are on that journey too. And so our audience's expectations are kind of thwarted. The people who you meet as the good guys, it's not that black and white. And the people who you meet as the bad guys, it's not that black and white. And we feel like these movies, you know, the ones that we've seen in the MCU are at their best when they make you feel empathy for people who you thought were bad, and make you see the complicated, messy sides of people who you thought were good. And we really wanted to embrace that in this movie. I mean, one of the things that drew us to the character for sure was the fact that she was a really powerful, really interesting, really unique and independent female character. And we are so excited to, you know, be telling this story about somebody who's not just powerful, but also really complicated and really interesting and really human. It's not just a feminist movie, it's also a humanist movie. Brie Larson in this role is so important because she is such a strong, such dynamic and complex person and woman, and she brings so much of that to the role. And it was such a joy to be able to work with her to imagine and develop and create a character who was just about as dynamic as any character, you know, we've ever written or ever seen kind of evolve on screen in any of our movies, and to kind of go on that journey with her and create Captain Marvel, and just think about her as somebody who's very specific and very unique, and she doesn't have to be every woman, but she does kind of capture something about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a powerful woman, and ultimately what it means to be human. We are going to meet a new, extremely important part of the MCU, a new character who's unlike any of the other characters, who's her own unique self, and who goes on a journey of self-discovery along with the audience of people who go to see her. They will discover who Carol Danvers is.
I'm just super lucky that I got to be in this. I had no idea that I would ever get to do something like this. They came to me, I was working on something else. They said, hey, you know, we're making this Marvel movie. Would you think about being in it? I said, really? What is it? And, you know, what's the story? So they sent me the story, sent me the script. What's fun about this story is that the storytellers are taking sort of the certain premises of the Marvel Universe and the characters and things that have been established and laid out and sort of subverting them. So that was why I had to really have a sort of crash course in that whole world to understand what I was doing. But then once I understood it, I was like, wow, how cool. This is so fun. So I had a ball. I just, because I got to do so many different things. That's the part of it that is the fun, is interacting with these really talented people that are just very down to earth. And because in the end, you're in front of the camera, you're working opposite somebody, and it's that feeling that comes between you. And most of my stuff is with Brie, and I get to watch Brie, and I get to see how she's dealing with what she's got to do, and the questions she's asking, and you know, she insists that it's real for her, and that it's grounded in the story and the journey of the story. And sometimes, of course, within a scene, you have to break things up into little bits and pieces to shoot it, and that's where the talent comes in. I knew that when I was approached about it and I read it, I know if I relate to it on a personal human level, then I can do it. If I didn't have that connection, that personal connection to the material, I knew that I couldn't make something work. So since I felt that spark when I read it, I understood, oh yeah, there's an emotional core here to this story. And it's a human story in the end.
Well, I wound up joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe via Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden, who I'd made a film called Mississippi Grind with about a couple of degenerate gamblers. And they were doing this film, and they very kindly asked me if I'd like to join the family. I'm like, yeah, I would. As a matter of fact, yeah, I would. That would be very nice. The Skrulls are basically these kind of tough, kind of lizard-looking like kind of space pigs. You know what I mean? Like tough, big sort of, you know, big tough Skrulls. But they can do something that makes them very, very formidable indeed. What's beautiful about the way this script is written, and what's beautiful about what it feels like we're capturing, is that Ryan and Anna are really flipping a lot of things on their head. They're also making this great hero's journey of Carol. Let's start at the top with the captain herself. Brie is a incredibly formidable dramatic actor. She's a fantastic comic. And she is strong as hell. I mean, she is so, like, she's strong. You know, I don't think I'd want to try to go toe-to-toe against Brie. He's one of the most enjoyable actors to watch, just period, point blank. You know, you go and watch something that Sam Jackson's in, you're going to have a good time. I mean, he knows what he's, you know, I mean, he's Sam Jackson.
You know, it feels like a moment in S.H.I.E.L.D. where, as far as as far as I know, as far as Coulson knows, S.H.I.E.L.D. is about managing things like Red Skull Tesseract-related technologies, Hydra mop-up activities, and that's about it. So to suddenly have someone crash through the roof of a blockbuster, which I think is one of the great entries of all time, who turns out to be part of an alien race, if anything, far more advanced than us. It's really the beginning, the very early days beginning of a chapter that, as we've seen, will become very, very important in the future of S.H.I.E.L.D. down the road and really define what S.H.I.E.L.D. becomes. There's a lot of the groundwork that gets laid for the first Avengers movie here, for Thor, for everything, really. So it's fun to go back and kind of experience that discovery within these characters' points of view. I suspect they're going to walk in and really have a nostalgic feeling around what I suppose some of the 90s jams they're going to hear, and seeing some old, only young, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in some 90s suits, and they're going to think it's a kind of stripped down, smaller scale origin story. And boy, are they going to be in for a surprise.
Oh, it feels great to be in the Marvel cinematic world. Certainly they're creating a world for everybody to somewhat exist in a way that, you know, some of those characters, like my character from, you know, Korath from Guardians of the Galaxy exists, you know, has a life, you know, has a backstory in a way. In some of these, you know, stories. So Captain Marvel is for my character, it's almost like a backstory coming to life. Obviously, we have a tremendous cast here. Brie Larson, obviously, who's, you know, keeps us somewhat grounded. Sam Jackson, it's great to see him again. We have an amazing Jude Law. We have an amazing cast, actually.
I play Minerva, and she is a member of the Star Force team. She's a Cree. She has blue skin, some blue hair. She's pretty badass. She's a sniper, so she's like the team's star sniper. The Cree society is a very structured, I would say, quite militaristic society. They value their warriors above anyone else. So the Star Force are elite warriors, so they are, you know, their status in society is very high. I would say, the other thing to say is the Kree have been engaged in a long war with the Skrulls, who are their kind of mortal enemies. We've talked a lot about trying to get into what the mindset is of the Kree and why they do what they do. And I think for me, it made sense to think of it as, you know, that they're raised with a very tribalistic mentality of a kind of, you know, this is us, that's them, you know, and you put the Kree first before everything. There's a real kind of pride in that. As an actor, I think, you know, it's fun to look up, you know, the origin of the character, but I think you kind of take it with a pinch of salt, because you've got to just look at the script that you've got in front of you and, you know, really work on how you're going to, you know, tell that version of the story. And yeah, it's fun. I've done a little bit of research, but I would say Minerva in this story is quite different to her, who she was in the comics. I think in the comics she was a geneticist as well, which I'm a sniper in this story. Anna and Ryan are fantastic, and you know, they don't come from the world of kind of doing big franchises or blockbuster films. They come from independent film where, you know, it's all about, you know, what's going on in each scene between the characters and what's the dynamic, and doing that very intimate kind of work with the actors and And that's great. That's, you know, I think that works really well with all the kind of spectacle on the one hand, but also having really, you know, moving, real scenes going on between characters.
I think Carol Danvers is always a character who has a lot of love out there in the world and who has a really unique and cool voice and who's been constantly trying to fight her way onto the slate. And so finally now, after 20 movies, it felt like the right time to kind of give her space. We really went back to kind of Kelly Sue DeConnick's run on the Captain Marvel, which dealt with Carol Danvers in a great way and really made her a fully realized character for the modern era, in which she finally assumed the mantle of Captain Marvel. And there was a voice for that character there and a tone for that character that really felt cinematic and felt like something that we really were excited to dig into and to bring to life on the big screen. As we meet the Kree in this movie, we see them on one side of a war against the Skrulls that they've been engaged in for generations. They've kind of been at each other's throats for years and years and years. They're kind of a technologically driven race, and very much motivated by this war, which has become pervasive to their entire society, like it's all geared around war. There are a few reasons we wanted to set the movie in the 90s. One of them was to make sure we gave Carol her own space as a character, where there weren't other superheroes flying around, where she really got to be the first one on the scene, and to provide Nick Fury with kind of his first encounter with superpowers, with aliens, with all that stuff. I credit our directors, Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden, with bringing that amazing cast together, because I think that people want to work with them. They think they want to work with Marvel too, but I think as actors they get very attracted to directors who are going to help shape these characters. And Anna and Ryan really were able to attract a great cast and get them excited about the work and passionate about the work and create these characters with them that I'm excited for people to see.
Well, initially it was just a thrill, and it's like being invited to a party, you know, and you've heard about who's been at the party for the last few years, and you know some of those people, and you admire all of those people, and it sounds like a good party, and then you're suddenly realizing you haven't had an invitation yet. So what's the matter with you? So to get an invitation is a good feeling. What they've seen in Anna and Ryan is a team that bring a kind of humanity, a morality, a sense of humour. There's a quick wit and a kind of smartness to the storytelling, because it's quite a complex story. And following the reiterations of the script and the rewrites and redrafts of the order in which the story is told has been really interesting. They've got a great sense of storytelling and rhythm, which has been forensically reworked so that it delivers and it reveals its secrets in just the right order at just the right time. Anna and Ryan, with this unusual combination with the Marvel world, and Brie. I just admired Brie, and I thought she was a fantastic piece of casting for the role of Veer's Carol, Captain Marvel, and it's good to say it out loud. So all those elements, really, all those elements. He feels responsible for guiding and containing her skill sets, honing her abilities, and trying to keep her mind from drifting into the more human, emotional places, and becoming therefore more focused and driven and slightly less emotional, which is rather more Kree, and it's certainly more Star Force. And so that it's a tight relationship, but you know, Veer's being who she is, the humanity still leaks out. Well, it's a good combination of fun, and then you know, on the odd day you get to really, you know, what I say, sort of play tennis, which is, you know, I always think the metaphor for acting, you want to play against someone who can raise your game. I arrived with a couple of months to train up and do some of the fight choreography, and she'd already been here like 3 months. So I mean, her dedication is extraordinary. She was really led from the front, and she arrives with great spirit and really well prepared, and it's fun to be around. I think having a character as powerful as Captain Marvel suddenly on the good side is going to be wonderfully exciting. And I think the fact that it's a woman, I think there's a fantastic sense of female strength and intelligence that's really unique to this character and particularly to this film. I think it's going to add a whole other string to their bow, if you like.
Captain Marvel is a character in our comics and in the mythology who's got 1 foot on Earth, 1 foot in the cosmic arena. And now that we've made a number of movies that take place on Earth, and now a number of the cosmic adventures with Avengers and with Guardians of the Galaxy and with Thor, we thought it was the right time to finally introduce Captain Marvel to the world. She's one of the most popular characters in our comics. She's one of the most powerful characters in the comics and will be the most powerful character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is not just about somebody who is incredibly powerful and can fly around and shoot photon blasts out of her arms. It's somebody who's very human, who's very vulnerable, and who has multiple dimensions. And when we found out that Brie Larson might be interested in joining this world, she came in, we had a number of meetings, we pitched her this idea. She was a huge fan of the character in the comic. And one of the highlights of my career at Marvel was introducing her at Comic-Con and having her come out on stage and stand there with literally almost everybody else from our universe. And there she was at the forefront. And it was a great foreshadowing, not just for how audiences are going to embrace Brie as this character, but also for how Captain Marvel is about to take the lead and be at the forefront of the entire cinematic universe. We've always had powerful female characters in our movies. We've had powerful female heroes in our movies. But having Captain Marvel as the title character for the first time feels like it's overdue and feels like something that we are excited and can't wait to deliver onto the world. We always love to look outside the box for filmmakers. And for us, it's not really outside the box. It's just finding talented people who might not have done movies on this scale, of this size before, but who've done incredibly clever and unique and special films. And Boden and Ryan Fleck have done just that. They've done a number of films that impressed us and just shows a very firm guiding hand and vision of storytelling. We came in and met with them 3 or 4 times, and they just understood Carol, and they understood her story and the wish fulfillment of that journey of becoming a superhero.
I've been a big fan for a very, very, very long time. I watch the movies with my friends, we have big discussions afterwards, and it's a whole thing. And I've been aiming to be a part of the MCU for at least, like properly, at least 2 years now. So now that this has happened, it's like being a tourist somewhere that you know. It's like being to the same country, being in the same country like 10 times, and then going for the first time every time you go to work. That's kind of what it feels like. It's pretty brilliant, is what I'm saying. I was very excited when I found out they were going to give Marvel's first superhero, most powerful superhero, I might add, her chance in the limelight and give her a chance to tell her whole story from the beginning. And we will see in years to come to the end. Maria Rambo is a female, very confident, very amazing former fighter pilot. She is someone who was capable of many, many things in her occupation, but didn't necessarily get to fly. She's from a male-orientated environment, so Carol being on the same Air Force base as her was something that comforted her being away from home, that comforted her knowing that she could really do this thing. So they were literally stuck together like glue. I think that's why Captain Marvel's going to be so special, because there's so many little parts of the movie that are like little independent movies. And it's great to have Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden, because they come from that background. So they're bringing such a niche, artistic, artsy, particular, but very free-flowing experience to Marvel. So it was a real treat to have them on board for my first Marvel movie. Brie, I was a big fan of for a long time. I think she's amazing. Every single person I meet, I'm like, oh, by the way, just so you know, for your personal knowledge, that Brie's amazing. Sam has been great to get to know, and been very, very good to do this first Marvel movie for me, because he's done all of them. Like, he knows exactly what he's talking about, and he knows how to maneuver around this set like water. So that's great to capture.
I didn't expect to be coming back after what happened in Guardians of the Galaxy, so it was a nice surprise to get the call that they were gonna do a movie well before Guardians of the Galaxy started, and Ronan was gonna make an appearance. Yeah, it's a fun character. This isn't the same Ronan that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy. This is before he's become kind of fundamentalist about the Kree way of living. But he's still true Kree. He believes in the Kree kind of structure and way of society, and he's their supreme accuser. I was really excited to work with them because I'm a big fan of Half Nelson, which is a movie that they had made, and so I knew them from that movie, which I thought was fantastic. So I was really looking forward to getting a chance to work with them on something that's very different than that movie. She strikes me as such a powerful individual, you know, she's a real kind of sense of confidence and a perspective on the world that I really admired, and Annette feels pretty copacetic with Captain Marvel.
Coming from the comic book world and seeing how Marvel has grown into the cinematic world, and to now actually be part of it, has been an amazing experience. I really enjoy this kind of work. It's basically using everything you got, moving. I used to be a professional athlete, so basically being in my body, using my body in different ways is fantastic. And this character, he can move. He's a big guy, you know, but he can shift. He can go into other. He can jump. He can run, and we've been doing some great stunts. It's been fantastic. You see immediately that they know how to give the actors the right information to get what they want, and at the same time giving us freedom to contribute to the project.
Being able to introduce the characters, being able to organize them, I guess Nick Fury becomes what we, I guess, know as a master manipulator. That's his superpower. He knows how to bring people together and manipulate them to get them to do what needs to be done to serve the greater good. You know, part of the challenge for this particular film, Captain Marvel, being that, you know, I got two eyes and it's 20-some, almost 30 years ago, I kind of have to forget who Nick Fury is at this particular juncture in the movies that I've done before, because he hadn't formed those opinions yet. And he's essentially a bureaucrat, you know, or an alphabet badass in one of those government alphabet things. He's still a badass, but he kind of takes orders. He listens to people that are above him. He wants to call in and tell them what's going on, and not necessarily keep it to himself and see what path is going down so he can make it his. There is a buddy cop element to it with me and Carol, and it almost develops like a Lethal Weapon kind of thing. I mean, we meet, we're kind of in an adversarial position. We don't have to have a knockdown, drag-out fight to become buddies, but we have to come to a place where I understand something about her, she understands something about me, and there's a level of trust in that belief of who each person is and helping that person discover something. She helps me discover things about myself, and I help her discover things about herself. What Brie brings to this is that level of respect of an audience that I'm talking about. She's done a very serious movie, and she won an award for. She's done a very funny movie with Amy Schumer that people loved and laughed at, and she's been in an adventure story that I happen to be in with her, where we're running from a big hairy monster. But she also has this real life thing that's very genuine for young women and women in general, where she's a champion of women's rights. She's a believer in the equality of standards for everybody to live by. And people respect her for that.